few thoughts about studio space. Without a doubt, studio space is a key aspect of our lives as artists. And without a doubt, a physical space is integral to creating. But we have to be careful, it doesn't start there. Studio space doesn't start with a physical space, it starts with an emotional space, an emotional impulse to create. And if we follow the example of children, they get it. They will create anywhere, everywhere. I mean, the more space, the better. And in fact, I know for a fact they prefer the floor. But that's the impulse. Darren Small was a friend of mine. Maybe friend is too comprehensive of a word, certainly an acquaintance. And it was an acquaintance built on our engagement with art. I regarded him as a very competent artist, and I admired his proclivity to create and to continue creating. You know, and we would engage each other on that level. So he would see things that I post and say, yo, I like that. And I would see things he posts and I say, Darren, that direction, yeah, I think that's something fresh. He said something once that struck me, and it struck me deeply because I didn't expect it to come from someone who was so given to practice and also so interested in creating. So when I share things, I would post it and say, in studio, right? Or this is in the studio now. And once he messaged and said, I wish I had a studio. And that struck me deeply because it was weird that he would think that you needed more to create. And I responded and said, Darren, it's not a studio. Really, it's my living room that I commandeered, a corner, a space, right? And he said, well, my living room is not big enough to create. And I also found that response strange, because if we remember, and I'm sure all of us had this experience, unless you were very, very fortunate to even as a child, have a room dedicated to yourself within which to make art, if you were so inclined. We started creating on kitchen room tables, on beds, on couches. I know that was my experience, and it was my family's kitchen room table on which I would create. You had your things, you did your work, you packed it up, and you had to shove it under your bed afterwards, or whatever was the case. And for a long time it was that. And then as I moved from space to space, maybe the space got bigger, sometimes it actually got smaller, but it was that it was a table or a corner in a room, even your bedroom, that you create a corner, right? And at one point in time it was outdoors for me, and I would still say in studio, because for me, and I think this is the key, or the critical part of it, a studio is a psychic space more than anything else, that emotional space. A studio is a psychic centering of ourselves within a space wherein we hold ourselves accountable to create. wherein we hold ourselves accountable to become more than what we are and to push further along toward true ourselves, and true ourselves both as individuals and within our craftsmanship, whatever that craftsmanship is. And certainly a studio is that psychic space where we reach towards maturation. It is not that we are fully formed in a studio where everything is there. We are reaching towards maturation. We're reaching to become as knowledgeable as we can, as gifted as we can become, as competent, as open, as focused, as mature. And I believe that is the work, or that is the idea that we have to hold on to, wherein we have to constantly remind ourselves that a studio is that idea of holding ourselves accountable, or being in studio is that idea of holding ourselves accountable to produce. Holding ourselves accountable to produce. If it is we decide that this is what we are called to do. And I believe that some of us are called to do it. Yes, some of us are trained to do it. But I've also seen in teaching children and in teaching other individuals that some individuals are called towards, and I've told others it's an impulse, towards expressing themselves in a visual form, certainly, but in other ways, in art, towards creating. And if you know, and you know, no one has to tell you. And even if you're not called to it and you are inclined towards it, don't start with the idea that you need space. Well, I understand, of course you need space, but don't start with the idea that you need a grand space to create. Start with the idea that you're holding yourself accountable to create. And from there, you'll figure it out. And that is the work that I have had to do repeatedly to hold myself accountable to create. And I know it's tough, but we can do tough things.